When I track the time I've been working on a project, I want the screen to be updated regarding what project I'm working on, when did I start, and how long has it been since I started. In order to implement this, we need to look into our main ztiempo.js file and go to the page where we initiate the tracking page. If we are tracking time, which is this area here, we want to see the name of the project and when we started to begin with. That we'll do by selecting the corresponding IDs of the elements that we've created previously. And for instance, for the name of the project, we refer to this ztiempo.tracked project, and then we get that project's name. Let's we already saved this in here. When we started tracking the time, we saved that in our object. Now we retrieve that and we get that project's name. Same thing when for the time when we started, we get ztiempo.started, and then we transform that to we get the time and we get the date by using JavaScript date related functions. This area here, that's what we're where we are putting this content in this div here and in this span here. And we also have an area here for the hours and the minutes, because we want to show that too. And for that, we're gonna get the current time, because if we want to know how long we've been tracking time, we need to know what the time is now to begin with. And then we get the difference in seconds from when we started by using JavaScript get time, which will give it the time in milliseconds. We subtract them and when we transform them into seconds. And we'll transform that into hours and minutes, and we'll show that in the corresponding span elements in our DOM. So that will give us the current time when we load the page. Should probably reload this. So that gives us the current time and the information. But if I leave this open, I want this to be updating every certain number of seconds, so that I can always see the most accurate time that's passed since I started. For instance, if I've been working for an hour, I want this to update to 1 hour without me having to go back and forth in order for it to update. Luckily, JavaScript has a functionality called interval, set interval, window.setInterval. So we're going to create an interval which will update those counters every 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, we're going to execute the code that's in here. The interval we're saving in ztiempo.interval, so that we can refer to it later to clear it when we no longer need it. We're going to log updating timer, and the code here is the same code that we already wrote here. You could probably do this in a more efficient way, but this does the job pretty okay. So basically what this does, it will run the code every 2 seconds and it will update the counter. I'm not gonna make you wait many minutes because you're gonna fall asleep, but I just want you to see here in the console how every 2 seconds this updates. But there's a problem. What if I stop the tracking? It keeps on updating, which is a waste of resources because I'm not showing anything to the user. Moreover, if I change to a different screen, I get an error because the elements that we're referring to are no longer exist when you're in a different view. In order to get rid of the timer when we no longer need it, what we have to do is define, well, when are we gonna get rid of it? First moment when I want the timer to be off is when I stop the tracking. That's here. When I stop time tracking, I'm gonna clear the interval that I saved. When I go to a different view is another occasion where I don't want the timer to be on. So if you go to track.html and go to the action bar, when we leave the page to the different pages, we're going to add this code in here so that the timer is set to off, and then we go to a new page. So that should correct the errors that we just experienced. I begin the tracking, right? It's updated, but then if I stop it, it won't continue. I want to get it started again. It started again. I go to a different page and it stopped, and then if I go back, it's going to be re-declared, so it's going to start all over again. But well, that I have to make that clear. It's going to start the timer again, but the interval is going to start running again, but the time is not going to go back to 0. If I go here and wait for an hour, and then I go back here, it's going to show 1 hour, because we are storing the starting time in ztiempo.started. Summary of the chapter. We want to we are tracking time, but we want the user to see what project they're working on and when they started, and we also want the user to see the time they've been working on that project, and we want to show the number of hours and minutes. That's going to be updated every 2 seconds by using a JavaScript interval. But if we no longer need that interval, we have to clear the intervals of the window. We have to clear that particular interval, and we need to do that when we stop the tracker, because then it's a waste of resources to keep on running code that's not of any use. And we also want to stop the tracking when we move to a different page. The interval. I keep on saying tracking. We need to stop the interval when we move to a different page, because the HTML elements that the interval method refers to don't exist in that other page. So for instance, these current hours, current minutes, they're non-existent in, say, records.html or report.html, so that will give me a JavaScript error, and we don't want that.